Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. I don't
All
know
right,
if
I'm gonna start the event.
Wow, that certainly is a lot of you. We'll give a few minutes for people to join, and we'll start in about 4 minutes.
People in here so far. That's a decent amount for a Discord stage. We'll see how high I can get. I think we're gonna get started here.
Okay, everyone.
Oh,
How's it going? So I'll kick us off. Here we've got myself, Mateen, and Matt, our CTO. And so we wanted to host one of these to kind of recap our experience and our perspective on the testnet, show you some of the cool stats that we've gathered and kind of some of the behind the scenes for what running the testnet looked like. And then invite some of you on the stage to give us your feedback directly and ask any questions that we might be able to answer. So hopefully that sounds good to you all. Mateen, do you know if I'm able to share my screen?
I don't think so.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is in the testnet channel, I'm going to post some screenshots as we go along. So to recap, we launched the testnet on the 6th and have been kind of monitoring it in real time and gathering a lot of useful information. and where some of its strengths are and where some of its gaps are. The really good news is that we only found one problem that required a smart contract change. And it was a relatively minor one, and we got that audited and already merged in, so that will be there for mainnet launch. Every other problem was in the UI or in kind of our Scooper application. So before we kind of open up to questions, I wanted to share some of the real-time dashboards that we've been working off of to see kind of what the health of the network looks like and what our throughput has been like. So the first thing I'll share is if you look in the testnet channel, I'm going to share a screenshot of what our daily volume in terms of number of types of orders looked like through the course of the testnet. So I posted that screenshot, and you can see that when we launched, we had a big spike of orders, and then it tailored off. And this was kind of the first indication that there was a problem with the scooper. The scooper was chugging through orders, and then it suddenly stopped being able to submit orders to the blockchain. And then you can see that we, Matt and I stayed up all night, and we rewrote that algorithm and got it from 3 minutes down to 150 milliseconds. And so you can see the big spike as it started to process through the backlog, but it tapered off again, which indicated another problem. And so that one took us a little longer to kind of track down. And you can see around the 11th, we identified that bug and we fixed it, and there was a big surge, and it worked through the backlog and tapered off again. And so the story that this graph tells is that we have been kind of identifying and fixing bugs in the scooper so that it can submit more and more operations in a scoop. And then around the 16th, we fixed kind of what was the last major bug, and it's now been able to kind of sustain operation since then. There have been a few hours where we took it offline, and then the thing that's gathering stats actually broke. So anything after the 22nd, it has been processing scoops, but it just hasn't been reporting to this particular dashboard. But the scooper itself, sustains load pretty well and burns through that backlog. You can see from this that our peak throughput is up around 1,800 operations per hour, which is really, really damn good. And on average, we do, between 500 and 1,000, which we think is fairly good. So while our total throughput seems to be really, really good, especially on an empty network, we are anticipating that kind of similar issues where there's a big burst of excitement and a big burst of orders will create a little bit of a backlog on mainnet, and we'll kind of burn through those as quickly as we can, and we'll have some more to say on that later. We're doing a full write-up on what to expect and what to expect in terms of improvements that are coming in the pipeline. So stay tuned to that for that. The second dashboard that I want to show you to tracking our metrics in AWS rather than in that dashboard that I was sharing with you earlier. And this shows, right now, this is over the course of the last 2 weeks, how many orders have been outstanding and executable. And you can see that burned down quickly once we kind of identified some of the issues. Oh, I didn't post a screenshot. I'm sorry. I'm so used to being able to share my screen. Let me post a screenshot. Okay, cool. So this is the metrics that we have been collecting from AWS, or ingesting into AWS. And so you can see that the purple line is the number of outstanding orders. It starts out around 37,000 outstanding and executable orders, and burns down pretty quickly from there. The other lines are the different types of operations that we do. So for example, for a while, let me post another screenshot. For a while, we were executing mostly deposits. Once those burned through, we started to get a good amount of swaps that we could execute. And so you can see that, clearly we had a large backlog, but it burned through these pretty quickly once we kind of settled down to normal amounts of load. You all are very excited and submitted over, I think it was 133,000 orders in the first week and over 300,000 orders total over the course of the testnet. And so that's, an incredible amount of excitement and load, and we're very happy that you guys participated. But that's where that backlog comes from. This second graph on that screen is the scoop age. And so what that's telling us is how old was the oldest order that we processed at any given time. And so this kind of gives an indication both of the backlog and how quickly markets are the price is swinging and being able to process old limit orders. If I drop it down to the last 12 hours, and I post a screenshot of that, so this screenshot shows the average age and the maximum age of the orders that we're processing. So you can see that sometimes it spikes up in order to process an older order. And that's because of price movement, right? So a pool is now able to execute a specific order that it wasn't able to before, and that order may be a couple days old because it was sitting there like a limit order. But then that quickly drops down to 0, and we're processing orders. So this flat line at the bottom is within 60 seconds. So right now, we feel like the testnet is doing fairly well. There's still a couple quarter cases that we're tracking down, orders that it thinks that it should be able to execute but can't, or vice versa, things that it should be able to execute but it isn't. We think that this is less than 0.01% of orders or something like that. So it's a very small number of orders that we can kind of fix those bugs and iterate on over time. But like I said, overall, this has been incredibly successful. Identified a lot of bugs and a lot of UI improvements that we can make. Places that we thought that the UI was doing a good job of communicating, and people kept getting confused. And so we're going back and we're rethinking those right now, and we're reworking those. And luckily, those are the kinds of changes that are easy to make. They don't require us to get the smart contracts re-audited, for example. And so that is kind of the kinds of work that are ongoing right now. The main thing that we wanted to host this AMA for is to gather your guys' feedback. So Mateen will start inviting people on stage, and we'd like to ask you to ask any questions that you have of us, and either myself, Matt, or Mateen will answer. Or, if you don't have any questions to ask, you can just tell us, what did you think? And there are 3 particular areas that we're looking for feedback on. One, we still have a few things to finish before mainnet, but are there any features that you feel like you couldn't live without, right? That you feel, and we're not going to just take everything that everybody says and throw it into a mixed bag, but it will help us get a sense of, what is it that people really want out of the DEX on day 1, and what can they wait a week or 2 weeks for us to kind of deliver post-launch. Second, if we very likely will, start to see congestion and backlogs on mainnet, so where it takes a few hours, a few days to process your order, what features would make you feel more comfortable with that kind of delay? And again, we'll have more to say on what to expect and the improvements that are coming in the pipeline that will help with that at a later date. And then the final thing, what was the highlight of your experience, and then what was the lowlight? What do you think could be improved? So with that, Mateen, is there anybody that you want to invite on stage to ask us questions?
All right, here we go. I
All
will
right,
ask
there
a
we go.
question about my freaking
Goddard
Wi-Fi
Dame
garbage.
Rung.
So I have a quick question, and I think it falls into the comfort with delay. I just wanted to know, now that you've sort of run through this, how do you envision pools will be set up initially to, say, avoid 50,000 shallow pools for the same assets instead of having like 3 more deeper pools for an asset, because I think that kind of falls into the comfort with delay issue.
Yeah, absolutely. So we left that enabled, and we left the ability for people to create pools even for existing pairs enabled at the start of the testnet, because we wanted people to test that feature. And if we only got the first 12 people who got to that able to test that, it wouldn't be a very good signal for us. On mainnet, it will be our UI will prevent you from making duplicate pools. Because it's eventually consistent and it's on the blockchain, it's still possible for multiple pools to exist, but the UI will basically funnel people to an unambiguous choice. Maybe the first one that's created, or something along those lines. And I think the grounds for that are already being laid by the front end team now. So liquidity will be far more concentrated within a few pools, very for the most part, identical, like one pool per token A, token B, fee combination. So that's what to expect, and that will certainly help with funnel of what price you're trading at, and so that the scooper is more efficient when it can pack more orders into one transaction, and so that will help with that as well. And there will be less, we have to spend a huge amount of our transaction size budget towards a pool that has very few orders against it. That'll still happen, but it'll be less common.
Cool. So I think I'm probably in the minority, but I really, really loved. I hated it at first, but I really, really loved the hold to confirm the order. I hated it at first, and then I thought it was something that made you guys unique, and I sort of miss that now. But I really love the way the UI works, and that's probably all I've got to add.
Sure. For people who liked the hold to swap, when things quiet down a bit with development, we'll probably add it in as like a feature you can turn back on. It made a lot more sense early on in development when we didn't have wallet integration, and you click the button and your order was fired off, and we wanted to make people commit to it. But now that the wallet serves that purpose, it didn't make a lot of people were totally justified in kind of pointing out that it didn't make sense, and so we removed it for now, but it may make an appearance later on. Thanks for coming up on stage. Mateen, you want to select someone else?
Yep, I'm sending a request to join the stage.
Hey, Blueberry, how's it going?
Hey, good. Really appreciate everything you guys are doing, and I'm really excited for this to launch. I guess my question is more on the side of pending transactions, and this might be a stupid question, but is there a way to put either some kind of detailed notification or some explanation if transactions are pending for that long period of time, so that we're not kind of stuck waiting what the issue is or seeing if something's wrong with it?
Yeah, so that's one of the biggest kind of refactors that's going on the front end team right now, is much more clarity around the status of your order and what to expect in terms of when it will execute or why it is not yet executed.
Okay, completely makes sense. And will there be a UI add-on where we can visually see a message or something simple? And I'm more so thinking about other new users who haven't seen the testnet or been through any of the bugs, people coming to SundaeSwap, and the uncertainty they would have if their transactions are taking longer than they do, say, on Uniswap or something like that they're usually used to using.
Yeah, Matt, you want to talk to that? I know you have some plans around that.
Yeah. Hi, Blueberry. So the plan there is to make that very prominent. Given the excitement around the testnet and the amount of traffic there, we fully expect that same level of traffic or even more on the mainnet. And so we plan to have very prominent if there's congestion and what the impact of that congestion is. If we have the time level of congestion, and so have an expectation of about what the delay will be.
That's perfect. I really appreciate your explanation. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Also, for those who haven't met him, say hi to Matt. I think, Mitt, this is one of your first public appearances. Matt has been with us since very, very early on in the project, almost the beginning. I think you joined behind the scenes, but he has been just that, behind the scenes. So I think this is one of the first times you're out here in public, and welcome.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be here.
Cool. Did you have anything else to say or ask, Blueberry? Oh, he's gone.
That was kind of great.
So who's up next?
While we're waiting to bring someone on, I'll just talk a little bit more about the delays and congestion and how the scooper addresses that. Because the block size is relatively limited, even though we're able to cram a number of orders into a single transaction, there's still only so much space on the blockchain. So what the scooper will do is it selects, based on different criteria, which pools it will draw from. And we'll be publishing more information about the rules that the scooper uses. But it tries to balance out publishing, scooping from pools that have a lot of orders outstanding from them, and at the same time also trying to be fair to spread the block size across many different pools. So it balances those out so that if you're in a really deep pool, that the traffic should feel like it, but at the same time, if you're in a more thin pool, you will eventually get scooped.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Thanks for having me. So my biggest feature request would be asymmetric. I don't know if you're familiar with Thorchain or ThorSwap at all. If you can tell from my profile pic, I am. But they liquidity providing, which pretty much just saves you from having to buy the asset before being able to use it to provide liquidity with. It's just a nice feature that lets you add your existing assets to any pool you want to, even if you don't have the correlating asset for that pool.
We absolutely agree with that. In fact, if you look on the testnet page at the graphs that Pi showed, if you look at the detail of those the user actions, you'll see the user actions are divided into 4 categories, and those are deposit mix, deposit single, scoop,
so
swap.
that is there. Okay.
So we haven't shown the UI for it yet, but we've added the functionality in the protocol to handle a asymmetric deposit.
Awesome. Do you know where those screenshots are? I don't see them.
That's really good. I was wondering.
Oh, there
Yeah,
is
so
a discussion channel.
Oh, okay.
Testnet.
Having to provide the pair, yeah, it's that problem of having to initially buy it in the first place. So, yep.
You guys already have it done. So
Yep, that's good. Really good question.
Yeah, no, we
Really good
were
question.
super excited about that feature too. So, expect that. It probably won't be there and available in the UI at launch, but it is definitely something we built into the smart contracts, so it won't be too painful to add later on.
Okay, then one other question. Is there any thought of impermanent loss protection?
We have some interesting thoughts there. Nothing that I'm prepared to talk about right now, and nothing that is set in stone. But impermanent loss is something that we have thought very deeply about and have a very nuanced understanding, and we'll be working on materials to help educate people on what impermanent loss actually is, and we'll be working on kind of long-term features to hedge against the risks of impermanent loss.
Okay, well, anybody out there, I hope you know what you're doing. And yeah, I'm planning to provide as much liquidity as I can as soon as you guys open the gate. So thank you very much for doing everything you're doing.
Yeah, awesome. We'll look forward to having you there.
Thanks. See you there.
It looks like we have somebody else. How do you want us to pronounce your username?
Hey, I'm Cracker.
Okay. What question or feedback do you have for us?
I have a little question. Will there be a little liquidity pool with pure Sundae token?
pure what token?
Sunder token.
So our
So-
protocol is permissionless. So anybody who wants to create a pool and wants to provide liquidity for any particular token, that pool will exist. I don't know if there's anybody out there who's providing liquidity for that whichever token that you're mentioning, but
Gotta check the policy ID,
it is
just like
you know
Uniswap.
I would bet on it if it's a fairly popular token.
No, right. Thank you.
Yep. Anything else?
That's all.
Okay.
That's
cool.
all. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on and talking to us.
Hello.
Hi. How's it going?
Hi. Good. Good. Thank you guys for your hard work. My question is, Ado, since you've been announced to work with the Cardano Foundation or the the creators of Cardano, is there any talks that you are already with them to actually work on layer 2 technology on Cardano already and trying to integrate with that, maybe ease some of the congestion and speed up the Sunday DEX?
Yeah, Matt, you want to talk about this one? I know this topic is near and dear to your heart.
For sure. So we've already started efforts looking at what a layer 2 solution would look like. We feel it's very important to be on the layer 1 of Cardano as a starting point. But we definitely buy into Charles's vision that over time, much of the traffic will move into layer 2s. And so we've been exploring Hydra. We've definitely been in communication with the Hydra team. And so that's certainly one possibility that we're looking at, but we're evaluating other options as well. Our
Okay,
hope
thank you.
is that our hope is that 2022 might be a year where we could show off some of that work we've been doing, but hard to say when.
Okay, so kind of like an alternative layer 2 solution to other than Hydra, really, or is it something more about the block size or how you handle transactions?
Well, I think there's a number of things that'll happen. Cardano, I'm sure IOG has made or has had talks about increasing the protocol parameters. We've already seen the protocol parameter changes. We wouldn't be surprised to see other increases to the protocol parameters to increase the amount of throughput we can have on just the L1. In addition to that, I think Hydra is a fantastic solution, and I think if it's applicable to running the DEX on, then that's definitely something that we'd be looking at.
Okay, glad to hear that you're already thinking about it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for coming on stage. While we wait for the next person, that's probably also a good moment to talk about, we have been collaborating with IOG both on, talks about Hydra and talks about these protocol parameter updates. We realized pretty early on that our protocol was going to be pretty beefy and fill up the kind of conservatively set parameters. And so we started that conversation quite a while ago to start the process of slowly increasing those. And so you should start seeing the fruits of that labor. And it has been absolutely fantastic kind of collaborating with IOG. They're collaborating with a number of protocols, but speaking just for ourselves, that relationship and that discussion has been super fruitful and positive. Hey, Resolvents.
Hi, how are you guys doing today? Can you hear me?
Doing pretty good. Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Hey, guys, thank you guys so much for inviting me on, and I'm really excited about the application you guys are working on. My question was more on the difficulties. I've heard a lot of, rumors and a lot of conversations about the difficulty of making a digital app on the Cardano network, and I just kind of wanted to hear from you guys. How do you feel about programming in it? How do you feel about it?
So it was certainly a new mindset, right? Like the biggest challenge was shifting how you think about smart contracts. On the Ethereum world, you are writing money with legs. and I'm stealing a phrase from Matt for this, but you are saying when somebody invokes this contract, I want to do. It's very active. I want to do this, this, and this. On Cardano, you are writing money with preferences. You have to say, I want my money to be able to be spent under these conditions. And they're totally equivalent. Anything that you can do in one, you can do in the other. It is just a pretty big mindset shift. And that's where a lot of the kind of vulnerabilities will come from, is in people not understanding the difference between these two models. And that's where a lot of the inefficiencies will come from, is in people not understanding the difference between these two models. Beyond that, some of the difficulties have been, just a artifact of developing early. So IOG, released the smart contracts, but there's not a lot of tooling there. So we had to write our own transaction inspection. We had to write, at times we were running versions of the Cardano node with our own logging and instrumentation kind of crammed into the code. It's been very much at the bleeding edge and at the wild, wild west. And that has come with difficulties, but it's not anything about the Cardano platform itself. And we expect that to improve kind of dramatically over time. It has already improved from where we started. And, to work with, and I'm very glad I'm here on Cardano and not on some other chain.
For context, I think it's useful to look at other blockchains in terms of how long it took things to happen. So if you go back to Ethereum, they launched in 2015,
exactly.
and Uniswap appeared in 2018, about 3 years later.
2017 ICO
on Solana, they launched their smart contracts. I'm going to have to look that up.
How long did it take?
The number I always hear is April 2020.
That's the question. I was there in
So I remember I looked it up at one point. They launched their smart contracts, and the first DEX appeared a little over a year later. And now we're in, Cardano land, and Cardano launched smart contracts 3 months ago, and we're just about on the verge of the launch of a DEX. So the time has absolutely collapsed in terms of how long it takes to build applications. And I think we're just going to see more and more of that. My personal bias is that because of the way Cardano smart contracts are organized, it's more amenable to no-code platforms, and so I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of that in the years to come as the tooling improves. I think, what is the name of the one that's out there already? I always forget the name of it.
Marlow,
yeah. So there's already a no-code platform for Cardano out there. I think that's more of a proof of concept of what can be, but I think it does show the power of where it's probably going to go.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thanks for coming on and giving us your feedback and asking questions.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's Cardano himself.
Yeah, it's me. How hard will it be to implement non-Cardano native assets?
Think wrap tokens?
Or is it
what do you mean?
Like Ethereum or any other tokens that aren't on the Cardano network?
Yeah.
Will it be possible to trade the tokens in the future?
Yeah, so that will largely depend on what the token bridging story looks like on Cardano.
Yep.
So our DEX is written to support Cardano native assets. That is anything that is a token, that can be moved from wallet to wallet on the Cardano network. And what the story will likely end up being is people will implement different bridges for different assets so that you can lock up your Ethereum on the Ethereum chain and mint something that represents Ethereum on the Cardano chain. And then you can trade that in a DEX like ours. Once that is in place, and once some of those are live, no changes have to happen to our DEX itself. In terms of how difficult it is to build those bridges and to bring those online, that's not a space that we're looking at right now. If the space stays unpopulated, it might be something that we look at to bring more liquidity to the DEX. But I know that there are a number of people already looking at that, and there's already a bridge for AGIX live on the testnet. So I would expect to see that in the coming weeks and months.
And in addition to bridges, Cardano will have a number of synthetic protocols like Indigo, where you can create synthetic versions of whatever asset you're looking at. So that might be a faster way for a number of them to come over.
Okay, thank you for your answer.
Yeah. For the next people that we bring up, I love the questions that you get, but we've only got a limited amount of time. So let's try and, just for the remainder of this, keep the questions focused on the questions and feedback focused on the testnet. Hey, Pri, your thing is lighting up, but I don't hear anything from you. Does Mateen or Matt, do you hear anything from Pri?
Nope.
Okay, maybe we'll bring somebody else on stage while you work out your audio issues, and we'll try one more time before we close out.
Hey, how are you guys doing? Can you hear me?
Hey, yeah, I can hear you.
Wow, I can't believe I'm actually on this. How was it meeting Charles? I know you guys are time limited, but I was just curious.
It was, so what you're referring to is when we were in Wyoming for the summit. We went up for a photo op with him, and then he recognized me without me having to introduce myself, which was a one of the kind of highlights of my trips to Wyoming. It was a real big honor. He's super nice. He's super down to earth. He pulled us all in for a picture. Grabbed our plushie. Super jovial guy. I've really enjoyed meeting him.
Awesome. Yeah, when I meet Charles, that's going to be a peak of my life for sure. I don't want to take any more time, but thank you guys, and I'm excited for the mainnet launch in a couple weeks, hopefully. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Hey, JC, how's it going?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Pretty good.
What do you want to ask?
It's more of a comment, really, than a question. First of all, congratulations. I think the SundaeSwap testnet is fabulous. It looks like so many other projects out there that are functioning, up and running, and successful. But my comment is this: I'm curious about, right now, currently, I believe it's like 4% of all humanity even knows about crypto. And I was wondering what steps you guys were going to take with regards to educating the uninitiated. Those of us that are participating in the stuff are basically in the minority right now. So I was wondering, what are you going to do for grandma and grandpa to onboard them and make it easy for people to just participate in this?
Yeah. So to some extent, you commented on how nice and friendly our site looks, and that's a big part of that, right? Making it approachable and easy to understand to the average user. Another dimension is kind of revisiting some of the assumptions that other dexes have made. For example, around the notion of swap versus something that you might see on a more conventional exchange, like buy, sell, market, limit order, things like that. Really, the name of the game here is twofold. One, making the user interface simple, clear, concise, understandable, and two, education outreach, right? So this is why you see me going on Hashoshi's show to explain. I've done deep dives with him. I've done demos with other people. That will only kind of ramp up after launch, and we'll be producing content in a variety of mediums to help educate people at all levels of the stack. So educating people at what is DeFi and why does it matter, down to how does the protocol work, and what is a UTXO and things like that. So education is a big part of our strategy, and it's not something that we're gonna let up on come launch. A lot too.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a number of elements to it. I think one of the early elements will be trust. When somebody is coming new to the blockchain, they've probably heard a ton of things. Maybe a few of them are true, probably a lot of FUD. So being able to have people see SundaeSwap and trust SundaeSwap is very important to us. It's why we spend a lot of time going through the audits, and it's why we've tried to go through and We think that IOG having the certified DApp program will be fantastic in making it easier for people who are outside the blockchain ecosystem to be able to come in and feel comfortable with the applications that they're interacting with, knowing that they've been vetted by third parties. Second is, as Pi mentioned, we've got the existing interface, which looks a little more like a traditional Uniswap interface, but we have some stuff that'll be coming out shortly where we're experimenting with more of a buy-sell model rather than a swap model. So we'll just make some assumptions for the user that'll hopefully make it a little bit easier to understand what's happening. And we think that that'll be an improvement as well. So, and the last thing, as Pi already mentioned, is the education part.
Anything else, JC? Oh, he's gone quiet. Pri, is your mic working now?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. Thank you for having me. Sorry about the difficulty there.
No worries.
First of all, I just want to thank you guys for all the work that you've done. I know countless sort of late nights working on this, but it definitely seems like we've, come far from that first week. So great job, guys.
Thank you.
My question, just wanted a little bit of clarity on the new UI changes that you're anticipating. So I understand that, first of all, there will be like an overall sort of health of the system status message in times of, a lot of congestion. So that's, is there going to be sort of detailed messages on the state of the order as, as it, if it, in turn becomes a limit order, if it is like in a state where it's pending again now because, the market's moved back in line? Can you expand a little bit more or on the types of messages and when it's a cancel pending, for example?
Yeah. So there are 3 large buckets of the UI changes that we're making. One, like you mentioned, is kind of a health dashboard that shows some basic statistics about how, even if it doesn't feel like the application is running and your order isn't getting processed immediately, demonstrating that it is, right? Other people are getting their orders processed and there's just a little bit of back. And, it's just something that every DApp has to design for and account for, is that there are going to be times where there's backlog. The second big change is, like Matt mentioned, where we're revisiting the order and the swap screen so that you understand the order that you're placing. The notion of slippage, tends to be really confusing to people, especially, who don't have experience with something like Uniswap. And then finally, we're building, a dedicated orders page. So we kind of rushed something out there to appease people, where if you click orders, it pops up that same modal. But there are a number of problems with that. First and foremost, it tracks your orders kind of locally based on what you've submitted and what it has seen from a kind of fairly transient API. And so there's a lot of difficulty in managing that in a really reliable way. And so we're building out some new APIs that read the blockchain and give you a consistent and complete order history. And so we don't have to rely on kind of storing things temporarily and things like that. And so that should be a lot more in displaying the state of your order. It also comes with, like you mentioned, saying, hey, your order is within the price range of the pool, and so the reason it hasn't executed yet is because of this backlog, versus, hey, you're like 6 orders of magnitude outside the pool, and so there's no chance that your order could be executed. And so it's kind of just sitting there, waiting for the price action to come back into what you had set up. Things like, cancellations and stuff like that. So that will be something that, we're not going to get right away, but we will continue to iterate on. And I think the biggest thing will be that new stats endpoint that kind of much more consistently reports the list of your order history. And then we'll continue to add to it over time.
That's incredible. That's all. That would be a tremendous help. Great. Second question. This is more for sort of, I know this will help in terms of like tax reporting and any additional data that we want to collect as users. But is there any, I know it's easy on the Ethereum blockchain where you can sort of just go in, Etherscan and figure out exactly how a transaction is. But given the state of a SundaeSwap swap, how do we recreate sort of the two halves reconcile the two halves of the swap. Is there any way or API or additional data that we could acquire from the blockchain explorers to sort of reconcile and recreate the swap?
So this is this one's a little bit near to my heart as well.
Okay.
So probably not for launch time, but probably shortly after, we'll be providing the ability to download a CSV of your order history that will contain you did this order at this price, you got filled at this, so that you could take that to your tax accountant or use in whatever sort of software you have to do your tax accounting.
Yeah, and in a similar vein, in terms of like rebuilding that history of like being able to link explicitly to the Cardano transactions, that's one thing that our new API will provide. And we've also provided feedback to a number of the to be able to kind of trace through specific UTXOs better. Right now in Cardano Scan, there's no way to tell, okay, I'm looking at a transaction, this had these outputs, but have those outputs been spent in a later transaction? And so being able to click backwards and forwards through that will be another super useful way to explore that that order history. And then finally, there's a project out there, I always forget the name of it, that is working on visual representations of these different protocols. Matt, do you remember what's the name of that project?
Oh yeah, Manzano?
Yeah, Manzano. So this won funding from Catalyst, and it's a woman named Kristen who's building kind of a Flutter app that gives like a visual graph representation of the protocol. And so you can see explicitly, okay, these 5 orders went into this scoop, and then this was the next scoop against that. Personally, I'm keeping my eye on that project, so I think that's really exciting and really cool.
Great. Thank you very much for answering those questions. Appreciate it. Looking forward to the launch.
For sure. Thanks for coming on board. I think we probably have time for one more question, and then we'll try to host these more often. The last one of these we did was back in May, I think, and it's been a kind of recurring joke that we owe you one of these, but things have just been so crazy. So why don't we bring on a person with one more question, and then we'll schedule another one of these for another time.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. Hey, how's it going?
I got the last one. Yeah, I guess another question in regards to delay, in the congestion and things like that. In regards to slippage, what does the congestion do for slippage? I guess that's kind of the biggest concern. I'm assuming you got a lot of probably feedback about the delay. So that was just my question.
Yeah. So for those who aren't aware, slippage is a measurement of how much your order moves the price. So on very shallow pools, your order will move the price a lot. And on big orders or on deep pools, it won't move it very much. It's also a function of the size of your order. So if you're swapping $10 versus 100,000, it'll be very different. And so then there's also the setting of slippage tolerance, which is if my order cannot execute at this price or 10% below it, for example, for a 10% slippage tolerance, don't execute my order. And this is one of the ways in which we express limit orders. And so part of the answer to your question is our new UI around buy and sell talk explicitly about this minimum price. And so instead of setting a slippage tolerance, you can also set just a price that you execute at this or better. And then the second part of that is how does congestion impact the slippage tolerance, and the slippage doesn't impact it at all, right? It just means that it'll take longer to execute, but they will all execute at the same as if they had all executed much faster, which means that the automated market maker will move the price at the same rate per order. And by the time it gets, by the time you are the oldest order and we're trying to include you in the block, we'll check, is your minimum price above or below what you would be executing at? And if you set a 10% slippage and the market has moved way past that, we won't execute your order because we can't, in fact, because of the smart contracts. And it will sit there on chain until the price comes back down to what it was you were comfortable with.
Gotcha. And so essentially it is first come, first serve on the The order processing.
Yeah,
like
orders are
Scooper?
processed from oldest to newest.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for the question, and thank you for everybody who kind of showed up and asked questions. Sorry that we couldn't get to everyone, and we'll try to host more of these. Things are a little bit crazy just because we're working really hard towards getting you this product that we've built. But we will make this a definite goal to have more of these. So, and with that, Matt, or Mateen, do you have any closing words for our community?
Thanks guys for showing up, and yeah, we'll be sure to do these some more often.
Nope. So thank you everyone for coming.
All right, bye.